If you're frustrated with yourself because you're staying in an abusive relationship or you keep going back to an abusive partner, even though you know it's ruining you, and you're asking yourself, why the hell can't I break free? Then this video is for you. I'm Lise Leblanc. Today I'm talking about how a completely normal, highly intelligent, good man can stay with a woman who is manipulating, controlling, and abusing him even long after the rational side of his brain knows that he should leave. Let me start by sharing a story that will help you understand how this can all play out in real life. Okay, so a client of mine, we'll call him David. He's a highly rational, logical guy. He's a scientist, someone who prides himself on his intelligence and his analytical mind. And he has had long-term stable relationships that ended reasonably well. And I say this because I want to be clear that this is not a guy who is unstable or incapable of relationships. It's not a guy who's lacking intelligence or weak by any means. And yet he has found himself stuck in a toxic, manipulative relationship with a woman who is controlling and abusing him. And despite knowing this, he hasn't been able to break free. So here's what happened. David met a woman at work, and we'll call her Stacy. She was hired onto his research team, and for the first couple of months, their relationship was strictly professional. But then she started getting closer. She'd come around asking him for advice, and he was happy to mentor her and answer her questions. It all seemed very innocent at first. But in hindsight, he realizes that all the smiles, stares, the laughter, the endless praise that she gave him was the start of the love bombing process. But at the time, all he knew is that she made him feel really important and valued, and he felt amazing around her. Then she started opening up about how unhappy she was in her relationship, saying her boyfriend was abusive, and when she had tried to break up with him, he threatened to kill himself. So she painted herself as a victim, cried on David's shoulder, and told him how she wished she could find a guy as supportive as him, saying he was the only one who really cared and understood her. And the more she came to him for support, the more he realized he had feelings for her. He didn't say anything about it though, because he knew she had a boyfriend. But then one day she told him she was going to end the relationship that night, and he opened up about his feelings for her. She said she felt the same about him, and they ended up having sex. And then over the next few weeks, Stacy kept showering him with attention, affection, admiration, and the most amazing sex he'd ever had. She told him he was her hero, her soulmate. No one had ever been there for her like he had. And David felt like he was on top of the world. They started talking about moving in together, getting married, having kids, and just planning out this beautiful future together. Things were moving fast, but he didn't care. He was completely swept up in the excitement and fully reciprocating her affection. Every day felt like a dream, and he couldn't believe how lucky he was. But then one night, she switched. Everything changed. During one of their long late night conversations on the phone, Stacy suddenly turned on him. She accused him of being a liar, a cheater, a loser. She focused on all the sensitive information he had shared with her over the past few months, using it to attack his character. And then she yelled, "I'm done with you," and hung up the phone on him. He was completely floored, didn't know where it came from. He tried calling her back, but she wouldn't pick up. And then the next morning, she called him as though nothing had happened. When David questioned her about the outbursts, she minimized her behavior, telling him not to listen to her when she's like that. And then she just went back to being affectionate again. And even though David was totally shocked, he was also relieved, and he just chalked it up to a one-off. But of course, this was not the end of it. Every couple of nights, Stacy started blowing up, lashing out at him in more extreme and ruthless ways, really attacking his weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And these episodes would typically be followed by, a weak apology, a period of idealization, but then it would happen again and again. So he started to feel uncertain about their future together, and he told her that he needed to put the brakes on their plans to move in together, which was supposed to happen in a couple of weeks. She was devastated. She cried, sobbed, explained that her horrible emotional reactions were because her ex-boyfriend was stalking her. And this was bringing back a traumatic experience where she'd been attacked by an ex-boyfriend in her, I think it was in her late teens. Anyway, David knew that her ex was calling her repeatedly, texting, begging her to come back. So to him, her explanation felt plausible. Plus, Stacy was assuring him that once he was there with her at night, she wouldn't be scared anymore and this wouldn't be happening. So they'll, live the dream life that they've been talking about. David, of course, desperate to believe her and to ease her fears, decided to move in right away. And for the first couple of weeks, things went back to being great. But then the emotional episodes started up again, where she would devalue and attack him, leaving in the middle of the night, saying she was going to her mother's house. When he confronted her about this toxic pattern, she get defensive and dismissive. When he suggested therapy to help her address past trauma and the current stalking situation she was in, she was adamant that she was not the one who needed therapy. They'd only been living together for a couple of weeks, but already it was hell, and he knew he'd made a big mistake. Then, one night, after she lashed out and left the apartment in her typical fashion, he tried calling her, but as usual, she didn't pick up, and it was then that he remembered that they'd shared their phone locations early on in the relationship, and he saw that she drove straight to her stalker ex's apartment. Her location showed she stayed there the entire night. When he confronted her about it the next day, she denied it, claiming that phone locations are inaccurate and unreliable. When he pushed further, she flipped out, flipped the situation, accused him of cheating, and then said he was a narcissist, trying to gaslight her, and she stormed out. This time, he didn't call or chase after her, but then a few hours later, she texted him asking where he was. He told her he was still at the apartment where she knew he'd be all day, and she responded saying, "Oh, well, that's funny because your location says you're at the office. Are you lying about where you are?" David didn't say much in response because he realized she was trying to gaslight him and that it was pointless. And that's when he decided to reach out to me. After he told me his story, I asked him what he would say to his best friend if he were in the same situation. Without hesitation, David looked me straight in the eye and said, "Obviously, I'd tell him to run for his life. I get it, Lise. I see the red flags. I know she's cheating, lying, gaslighting me. But my question to you is, why can't I just walk away? I swear I've never been so irrational in my whole entire life, and no one at the office would believe that I was in this situation. And they wouldn't believe that Stacy was behaving this way either because she acts so sweet and caring at the office. But behind closed doors, it's totally different." So that's when I explained to him that what he was experiencing wasn't just confusion, bad judgment, or a lack of courage or intelligence. It was a classic case of trauma bonding. A trauma bond is a strong psychological and emotional attachment that forms due to a cycle of idealization, devaluation, and emotional or physical discards. So here's specifically how it happened. During the love bombing stage, Stacy showered David with this almost constant validation, attention, affection, sex, and emotional intimacy, making him feel amazing. This flooded his brain with dopamine and other feel-good chemicals, creating intense emotional highs that were addictive. And once he was hooked, she pulled back, withdrew her attention, stopped all the rewards, and started punishing him, which left him feeling anxious, confused, and desperate to figure out what went wrong and how to get those rewards back. So after he'd chase her and try to do whatever it was to earn her affection back, she would go back to being sweet and loving. And this would give him instant relief from the extreme emotional lows that he just experienced when she lashed out and pulled away from him. So as the relationship goes on and he's repeatedly exposed to this emotional roller coaster, he loses his ability to regulate dopamine on his own, and he becomes more and more dependent on Stacy to provide those dopamine hits. In essence, David's reward system is hijacked, and he's addicted to the anticipation of rewards and the rewards that only Stacy can provide. And this makes him feel like he can't function or survive without her, even though she's the one who's making him sick. Over time, as David continues to go through these toxic cycles, his dopamine system gets more and more dysregulated and dysfunctional. And sometimes, in extreme cases, this can lead to reward deficiency syndrome, which is often associated to addiction, depression, personality disorders, and other mental health problems. And this is where your brain can no longer regulate dopamine properly. In David's case, the level of abuse he's enduring, combined with Stacy's unwillingness to confront her issues, leads to a painfully clear conclusion. And even he knows this intellectually. But the psychological and physiological pull of the trauma bond is stronger than his willpower and his rational mind. And it's in the insidious nature of this cycle that he is staying tethered to the person who is destroying him. So if you take anything from this video, please understand that this isn't about a lack of logic or intelligence. It's about biology. And if you're in this situation, your job now is to cut contact and rebalance your brain chemistry. If you're in a trauma bond, please reach out to a therapist who can help you break free. You might also be interested in taking my toxic relationship recovery program, which I linked in the description section of this video. If you found this video helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. To learn more about how to break a trauma bond, please click on the link above.